Today's Daf Yomi is Bava Metzia Mem Gimel, Bava Metzia 43. Today's Daf Yomi is dedicated for Yeshua, for Am Yisrael, Shemir for the Chayalim, Matzah for the Shvuyim, for Shalima for those in need. It says the Mishnah, Mafkin Mos Eitzel Shalchani. So if somebody deposits money, the money changer's job is to take the money and help other people by using the money to help them get their right coins. Then imtzrorin, and then if the coins were bundled up, so then the intent is the person who's giving him it as a deposit, he doesn't intend for the money changer to use it. So therefore, the money changer is not allowed to use it there. For Fikach, since he's not a borrower, he's a watchman for free. If it's lost, Eino Chayav B'Achriyusan, and he's not responsible. The money changer is not responsible for loss because under those circumstances he's an unpaid watchman. But if the money was not bundled up, then the money changer will be allowed to use it. Therefore, since he's allowed to use it from the moment that he gets it, he's considered a borrower. So therefore, if it's lost, he's responsible for it. It's a Bava bias. Let's say he doesn't give it to a money changer, but he gives it to just a regular person. And then, of course, the implication is that he's not going to use it. Then, if it's bundled up or released, he shouldn't use it. Therefore, if it's lost, he's not going to be responsible. He's going to be considered like an unpaid watchman. He's not responsible. What about a shopkeeper? How do we view the shopkeeper? Sells products. He doesn't really sell money. So Chanvani Kabbalah bias. Rameir says that a shopkeeper, we consider him like a regular person, that in that case, he's not supposed to use it, so he's an unpaid watchman. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda says, Chanvani Kishalchani, the shopkeeper is like the money changer. And that's what Rabbi Yehuda says. So therefore, if it's untied, he's considered like a borrower. He's going to be responsible for loss. So the Gemara says, wait 1 second. You give the money to a money changer. You don't expect him to use it just because it's bundled up. Isn't that what the money changer does with the money? He borrows it. So Amar Vatsi and Rabbi Yehuda b'tzrorin v'chasumin shanu. Now we're talking about cases where it was bundled up and sealed. So clearly you don't want him to use it because it was sealed. And indeed, Ramari Amar b'kasher mashuna. You're talking about a case where it was sealed up with an unusual knot. Ikadamri's alternative version is by Rav Mari. Rav Mari asked the question, Kesher Meshuna Mai. And if it was sealed with an unusual knot, what would be the halacha? And the Gemara says, take it. We leave this question unresolved. But if it was mutar and if it was unsealed, then we say that the money changer could use it. Amar Afuna. So it said in our Mishnah, if it's lost, that the money changer is responsible. Now, generally speaking, loss is responsible, even if not only if you're a borrower, but even if you're a shomer sachar, even if you're a paid watchman. But Rafuna says vafilu nansu, that if it's an accident, you're going to be responsible. Meaning to say that even if you were that you're responsible for accidents, a borrower is responsible for accidents, but not a paid watchman. So Rafuna is categorizing this person who's using the shalchani, the money changer, as a borrower. Therefore, he's even responsible for accidents and not a shomer sachar. So Gemara says, but what are you talking about? Avdu katani. It says explicitly in the Mishnah, if it was lost, and that's like a shomer sachar, not a borrower. Gemara says, no, it's like Rabbah. The Amar Rabbah. What are we talking about here? We had this earlier, this explanation in two other contexts in our Masechta that it talks about Nignevu, Belistin, Mizuyan, that when it says it was stolen, you're responsible. It means even in an accident. That if it was stolen with armed robbers or avdu, if it was lost, also a total accident, shetabus finasavayam, that the ship sank at the sea. So Rafuna is saying that we view this person as a borrower. The Rav Nachman says, no, we don't view him as a borrower. We don't view the Shalchani as a borrower because he hasn't yet touched it. So we view him as a shomer sachar. He says, that if it was an accident, he's not responsible because we view him as a shomer sachar, as a paid watchman. So Amar Rav Nachman. So Rav says to Rav Nachman, the Amras Nansu, according to you, who says Rav to Rav Nachman, according to you, says if it's a total accident, he's not responsible. So you're saying we're not going to view him as a borrower. Well, if that's the case, he's Oavi, Shomer Sachar Nami Oavi. Well, if he's not a borrower because he can't use it, why are you going to consider him a Shomer Sachar? Why are you considering him a paid watchman? What's the what's the distinction? Meaning to say, Rashi explains like this: Maschar not Shmi. He's not getting paid. Elal, what's this? What's Elal Shasamachoem Lachlifan Ulistaker Imiyavo Yado Atamachaiva. So why are you saying he's responsible? Because he's relying on them. That if people come to use them, he can exchange them, and that's why you're saying he's going to be responsible. But this is a borrowing because he's getting all the benefit. So therefore, this is so he's not a paid watchman either. So Amrway, so Rav Nachman responds, I'll tell you why he's a Shomer Sachar. Bahamo dinocha. The hoil v'nana mahane. So no, because he's getting paid. Why is he getting paid? Because if somebody would come and want to use it, he could use it to basically give the money if there's an opportunity. And so since he has the opportunity to use the money, that's a benefit. That's the payment that he's getting. With that benefit, if he has an opportunity to buy something that he's going to make a profit, he could use it. So therefore, that's a benefit that he's getting. So he's watching and he's getting paid with the opportunity to use the money if he has a need for it. So therefore, Rav Nachman says he's a shomer sachar. Rav Huna is saying that he's a borrower. So Eitzvei Rav Nachman Rav Huna Amavkin Mos Eitzel Shochani. Well, everybody would say once he uses it, he's considered a borrower. The question is, until he uses it, is he a borrower or is he a shomer sachar? So Rav Huna is saying he's a borrower. Rav Nachman is saying he's a shomer sachar. So Rav Nachman challenges Rav Huna from the case of Me'ila. What is Me'ila? Me'ila is misappropriation of temple money. It's one of the three examples of where you have an agency for sin. So if the treasurer takes something and misuses it, it's considered me'ila, and he has to. If he does it accidentally, he has to bring a carbon, asham, and he has to pay back 1/5. So let's say the treasurer comes, hamavkin most eitzel shulchani. So let's say the treasurer comes and he takes money from the temple and accidentally deposits it with a money changer. So im tsururin, if the money was bundled up, well, yishtamish ben, then the money changer is not allowed to use it. And so therefore, ofikach im hotzi, therefore, if he ends up using it, well, ma'al gizbar, the treasurer is not the one who's going to be responsible for misappropriating temple funds because the money changer wasn't allowed to use it. Mutarin, but if it was not bundled up, it was not sealed, yishtamish ben, then the money changer is allowed to use it. Ofikach im hotzi, at that point, if he uses it, the treasurer is going to be responsible for Me'ilah because he was allowed to use it. The money changer was allowed to use it, so therefore it's the treasurer's fault. But if you're going to say that he's considered to be a borrower from the moment it comes into his possession, that he's responsible for accidents, then even if he didn't use it, the second it's in his possession, he's borrowing it, and so therefore the treasurer should be responsible. So why is it only if he uses it that the treasurer is responsible? Then even if he didn't use it, we're going to say he should be responsible. So the Gemara answers, even though he didn't use it, he's going to be responsible. But since in the first clause it says if he used it, the treasurer is not responsible. So therefore, Tani Seifa Nami Hotzi, that if he used it, the treasurer is going to be responsible. But the truth is, says Rav Huna, that even if he didn't use it, once it came into his possession, he's considered a borrower, and the gizbar, the treasurer of the temple, is considered to have misappropriated temple money by lending it out to somebody else who's considered a borrower at that point, and therefore there's Me'ilah. Now we come to the idea of Hasholeach Yad B'Pikadon. Somebody who is Sholeach Yad, what Sholeach Yad? He misappropriates a deposit. He uses a deposit that's in his possession. He's not allowed to use it. So let's say he uses it, Beis Shammai Omrim, and it's a kind of theft. So under those circumstances, one who sholech yabed pikadon, Beis Shammai says yilke bechaser ubiyeter. Beis Shammai says under these circumstances, he's yilke bechaser ubiyeter, that he's going to pay the higher value. Basically, that he'll either pay if the price goes up after he uses it, he's going to pay the price of what it is when it goes up, and if the price goes down, he'll pay the price for what it was when he stole. That's what Beis Shammai says, and Beis Hillel says kishas Beis Hillel kishas otzah, like the moment it goes out. We'll have to see what that means. Rabbi Kiva says kishas hatvia, like the moment of the claim. So now we have this sugya. Amar Rava or Rabba, there's a whole dispute here amongst the Rishonim. Haiman de gazel chavisa de chamra. Somebody steals a barrel of wine michavre. Somebody steals a barrel of wine from his friend. Meikara shav yazuze. So Reuven stole a barrel of wine from Shimon. When he stole it, it was worth 1 zuz. But hashta shavia arba. But now it's worth 4 zuz. Tabra ushatya. Let's say he broke it or drank it. Then Mishalem says Rava, the chiddush here, or Rava, the chiddush is that he has to pay like the moment he break it. Mishalem arba. If he broke it, he has to pay from the moment he broke it. And Gemara is going to explain why. It's bar mamela mishalem zuze, but if it breaks on its own, he has to pay 1 zuz. So the Gemara here says, my time, what's the reason that if he breaks it, he has to pay 4, but if it broke on its own, he pays 1? Given the Isa hadra lamara be'ena, because let's say if he wanted to, but while it was still in existence, he could return the actual barrel. So he shata the kashasi way or the kataver way kagazol mine. So it's viewed not that when did he steal it? He stole it again at the moment he drank it or broke it. And so therefore that's the moment that he stole it, and at that point it was worth 4 zuz. And all robbers have to pay like the moment it was worth when it was stolen. But idmar mela mishalim zuz. But if it breaks on its own, he only pays 1 zuz. My time, hashtalo avedla v'omidi. So since at this moment when it broke, he didn't do anything. Why are we saying he's responsible? He shot at the gazla. At the moment he stole it, well, like he shata zuzuhu deshavya. At that moment, it was worth a zuz at the moment he stole it. So therefore, Rava is saying at that case, you're going to only pay 1 zuz. So now the Gemara is going to challenge Rava or Rabba from our Mishnah. Tanan, we'll just assume it's Rabba because that's the gears on the printed page. So actually, I changed about. We're going to go with Rava because that's what seems like the majority of the Rishonim say, and that's the gears of the Rif and the Marashal. So we'll say it's Rava who said this chiddush. So let's challenge us from our Mishnah. Tanam Beisil Omer Kishas Hotzah. Beisil says that you pay according to the moment that you took that it went out. What does that mean? My Kishas Hotzah. What does it mean? The moment went out. Ilema Kishas Hotzah Mina Olam. If you want to say it's the time that it went out from the world, i.e., there's a time that it was destroyed, Kishas Hotzah Mina Olam, that it was a time that it was that at the time it was destroyed. Ubemai, and if that's the case, what's Beis Hillel arguing about? Ibechaser, if we're going to say it went down in value, meaning to say at the time it left the world, it was, when you took it, it was worth 4, and now it's worth 1. Mikol Manda Amar, is there anybody really who would say that you only have to pay the cheaper value? That Beis Hillel says that even if it goes down in value, that Beis Hillel is arguing with him and he's saying that, is there anybody who says that you would pay the cheaper value at that point? That doesn't make any sense. That Beis Hillel is saying that you pay it at the value of what it was worth when it went, that even though you stole it was worth 4 and now it's worth 1, since you destroyed it when it's worth 1, that's what you pay. But we learned explicitly in the Mishnah that all robbers pay It says in Bava Kama that every robber pays according to what it was when you stole it. And if you say no, it means that you pay the value of what it was when you broke it. If it went up in value, if when you stole it's one and when you broke it's worth four, and that's what you pay. Well, that's exactly what Beis Shammai says. Yoke b'chatzor b'yeter. So therefore, Ella, so what's Beis Hill saying? Pshita kishas otzami Beis Baal. It must be that Beis Hill is saying you pay for what it was worth at the time you stole it. And they're arguing about if it goes up. Now, Beis Shammai says if it goes up, you pay the time that it's destroyed, meaning not the time you took it from the person. And Beis Hill says, no, you pay at the time it was stolen. So, but Rava here in our Rava with this statement that we started our Gemara with is saying that you pay what it was when you destroyed it. So you want to say therefore that Rava is saying like Beis Shammai, we're on top of Mem Gimel on the base. Do you really want to say Lema Rava Damar Beis Shammai? That Rava is ruling like Beis Shammai. We don't want to say Rava rules like Beis Shammai. So the Gemara says no. Amracha Rava Piyata Kuy Amalo Pligi. It says if it goes up in value, even Beis Hill would agree that that's what you pay. Ki Pligi Bechaser. We're only talking about a case where it goes down in value. Beis Shammai says. So we're only talking about a case where it goes down in value. Beis Shammai says that in order to be responsible for shlichus yad, in order to be responsible for misappropriation, or misuse, we don't need the deposit to have been depleted. And so therefore, and so therefore, when it goes down in value, it went down in his own value, and so therefore, since it went down in his own value, we're going to say, since Bershusa Didei went down in the domain of the watchman, because he already acquired it, and so therefore he pays at the moment that he took it, even though it didn't get depleted. Whereas Beis Hillel says, Shlichus Yad, in order for you to be responsible for misuse, you need depletion. And so therefore, even though it depleted, he hadn't stolen it yet because he hadn't depleted it. Even though he took it, since it hadn't depleted, he hadn't been stolen it yet, and so therefore it's only stolen at the time that it goes down in value, and therefore since that's the misappropriation, that's the misuse, that's why Beis Hillel says you're only going to pay at the moment it went down. Mar says, wait 1 second, we have a problem with this. Rava says elsewhere that you're responsible for shlichus yad even if there is no depletion. That seems to be exactly like Beis Shammai. Do you want to say Le'ima Rava Damar Beis Shammai? Do you want to really say that Rava rules like Beis Shammai? Can't be. So the Gemara says, therefore, Hachamai Askinan, we're talking about here is a different case. We're talking about the case could go into Tiltul Alahavi Ala Gizolos, that you move the barrel in order to stand on it to bring along the birds that you want to reach up to get the little pigeons. And we're arguing about a case where a person borrows the pikadon, the deposit, without permission. Beis Shammai's other position, Beis Shammai's is a gazanavi, that he's a robber, and so therefore, Bershusa didei chaser, and so therefore went down in his possession because he stole it, and so therefore you were going to pay the value of what was when he borrowed it. But he sold Sabri Shohavi. He says no, he's a borrower, and so therefore, even though he borrowed without permission, he's not considered a thief; he's considered a borrower. And so then, when it depleted, depleted in the domain of the owner, and so therefore, you only pay at the moment it breaks. If that's the case, according to if that's the case, we have a statement that Rava says that if you borrow without permission, you're a robber. Do you really want to say Lema Rava Damar Beis Shammai? Do you really want to say Rava's ruling like Beis Shammai? We don't want to say Rava's ruling like Beis Shammai. So therefore, the Gemara says a new path to understand what Beis Hillel means when it says B'shas Hatzah. We're talking about B'shevach Shel Gzeiro. We're talking about who's entitled if you steal something and then the stolen item produces dividends. Who's entitled to that? That's what they're coming for. That's what their argument. Mishamei Savri Shevach Gzeira, the Nigzal, that if there is dividends from what was stolen, it belongs to the original owner, the Nigzal Havi. And Beis Hillel Savri Shevach Gzeira the Gazlan. Basil says that the robber gets the dividends of the stolen item. We put the Dahani tonight, and other Tanaim already had the same dispute. Tanya goes also Rachel Kezaza. Although let's say you steal a Rachel, you steal a female lamb, a female sheep, and then the animal gives birth. Rameir says you pay back the lamb plus the dividends, the shearings, and the offspring. And that's Rabbi Meir, and Beis Shammai must be ruling like Rabbi Meir. But Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you just have to return the rachel, you just have to return the lamb, but you get to keep the dividends. So therefore, we're going to say that Beis Shammai is like Rabbi Meir, and Beis Hillel is like Rabbi Yehuda. And indeed, we can infer this from the actual text of our Mishnah, because it says, Beis Shammai Omrim Yulka B'chas Rabbi Yoter. Beis Hillel Omrim Keshas Otzah. That Beis Shammai say, you pay what it went up and when it went down. And Beis Shammai doesn't say Beis Shammai doesn't say you pay for the fluctuation in the price, but chaser v'yeter, meaning to say that which is missing from its body and which is added onto its body, you have to pay that back. And Shema Mina, so that's the language, and that's how we learn it. Okay, Rabbi Akiva says keshas atfiya, that you pay about what the value was when it was claimed. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Alachak Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, the law is like Rabbi Akiva, that you pay according to the moment it was when the claim was made. Rabbi Akiva says, well, no, if there were witnesses at the time that you stole it, then Rabbi Akiva would admit that you pay what it was worth when you stole it. My time, and what's the reason for Rabbi Akiva that you pay according to the day the claim was made? Because the verse says, the Amar Kra, with respect to returning a stolen object, it says, that you should give him back the money on the day of his guilt, meaning to say, according to what it was worth on the day that he's obligated to pay. So since there are witnesses, at that moment he has to pay it back. And so therefore, Vikiva says, generally speaking, you pay in the moment of the claim, but if there were witnesses at the time it was stolen, of the value of it, then that's what you would pay. Amoy Rabbi Oshaya, Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Oshaya said to Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Ata Omer Kain. Hachi Amar Rabbi Asi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Do you really say this? But this is what Rabbi Asi said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Chalokay Rabbi Akiva afil b'makom sheish edim. That Rabbi Asi says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, that Rabbi Akiva argues even in a case where there are witnesses, that Rabbi Akiva argues and says you only pay the value of the claim. My time, that the court is what requires him to pay, not the witnesses. So therefore, that we see the statement that Rabbi Yochanan says, that Rabbi Akiva says you make the payment. Even when there are witnesses, you make the payment only at the value of when the claim was made in court. So what does Rabbi Akiva say? So Amalei Rabbi Zero Rabbi Abba Papa Ki Azos Asam. When you're going from Babylon to Eretz Yisrael, Akif Asuma Tetzur, go the longer way, so that you could go up the steps of Mount Tzur, meaning climb up the Har Tzur. Ve'ula Gabe Rabbi Yaakov Bar Idi. And go and visit Rabbi Yaakov Bar Idi, and ask him the question: Ishmiel el Rabbi Yochanan, lachak Rabbi Akiva, eina lachak Rabbi Akiva. Did he really hear this statement that Rabbi Yochanan really said? Did Rabbi Yochanan really say this? That the law is like Rabbi Akiva or not? And Amarle Hachi Am Rabbi Yochanan lachak Rabbi Akiva la'olam. And so Rabbi Yaakov responded, the law is like Rabbi Akiva forever. It's a very beautiful phrase. The law is like Rabbi Akiva forever. My law. Means to say exactly this. Don't say, in the case where there's no witnesses, in the case where there's witnesses, then Rabbi Akiva would say that the law is not like him, because in the case where there's witnesses, we would say that it goes back to the time of was when it was stolen. V'inami, or alternatively, Let's say, or we want to say, well, it means to say that there's another law where it's like Rabbi Akiva. Let's say you return the object and it broke, that under those circumstances, Hafuki de Rabbi Shmuel, the law is like Rabbi Akiva, not like Rabbi Shmuel, who says, Lo ba'ina das ba'am. Rabbi Shmuel says we don't require the knowledge of the owner that it was returned. Kamash one, that Rabbi Yochanan is saying the law is like Rabbi Akiva, de ba'ina das ba'am, that we require the knowledge of the owner. And so therefore, that's what he's saying, the law is like Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi says the law is kavesil, that you pay like the time of the theft. And what do we say that this is referring to? Meaning to say you don't have to pay the dividends, that's what he was saying. So we'll just do the next Mishnah. Meaning to say, if a person thinks that he's going to misuse a deposit, meaning to say, Rashi says that he said before witnesses, he spoke before witnesses that he's going to take this deposit, but he didn't do it. So what is it that he actually said it? Because thought by itself is not sufficient. But the problem here is that here Rashi says that you actually have to say something. But the Gemara in Kedushin, Rashi writes that it's enough to think it. So it's a question here whether you require speech or thought itself. Beis Shammai says you're responsible. That Beis Shammai says that you're responsible at that moment for the deposit that you took, like you misappropriated. And Beis Hillel says, no, you're not responsible until you actually misuse it. As it says, meaning to say you're only responsible once you actually use it, and it's not enough just to have the intention to do so. So I'll stop here. God willing, we'll dive in upstairs. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to address.